Now, welcome to everybody. Some of you I don't know and some of you are new. Gwen Taylor, would you put your hand up? Gwen worked for Creation Research for many, many years, didn't you? Wow, she still sort of looks after me every now and then, so that's wonderful. So pray for her, pray for her husband. And welcome to Alan over this side. Nice to meet you. Haven't met you before. Give him a clap as well. And okay, last week after Jeff finished a sermon on Hebrews 11, which was great, by the way. Did you enjoy that? I love Hebrews chapter 11. He sort of caught me by surprise and said, how about you preach next week? I said, that's fine. So I've been collecting a few things which we have been doing for our museum. I don't know what your background is, but I've always loved evidence. I've been involved in science for a long time. In fact, the evidence is part of what the Lord used to lead me to himself to become a Christian. And as you know, we not only talk about Aborigines, notice the heading, by the way. It's not where did the Aborigines come from or how long have they been in Australia or who invented boomerangs. It's all about from Adam to Australia for Jesus' sake. Okay, now that's our theme this morning. And we do run some museums around the countryside. Do you remember Craig coming here? He's sort of the guy I've asked, listen, Craig, I've got to look after a darling wife. I go to see her every morning, every evening when I can down at the care home. How about you take over a lot of the admin? He's learning the hard way how much admin there is in creation research, by the way. But we have a museum down in Tasmania, and we helped him out a lot by giving him a lot of fossil specimens. And they're doing a great job down there. He'll be up here in a few more weeks' time, so pray for Craig. He's starting out to drive to Queensland this coming week. It's a long way from Tasmania, and there's a big pond in between Tasmania and Australia. He's got to cross over that. Then he's got to drive several thousand kilometres. He's running a camp for Slavic people on the way up, so that's got its own difficulties. But just pray for Craig as he gets involved in the ministry. And in fact, we have a theme in our museums, and there it is there. Our key verse for our museums is all things are made by Christ and for Christ. Now, do you realise that's at odds with where the world is at the moment? All things happen by themselves. Listen to David Attenborough sometimes. Listen to the compares on Channel 7 and Channel 9 in their nature programs. This bug evolved over millions of years. Look how sophisticated the monkeys have become, etc. No reference to Jesus Christ as Creator and Lord of all. Our museums are a little different. There's Craig, and some of you have seen our charts on the timelines of history. See Angelina there with the long, nice black hair in the front of the picture. See Craig on the left-hand side. And she went into the museum in Tasmania and said she's only got a question, where did evil come from? If you say God made everything very good, where did evil come from? That's a good question, by the way. I wonder what you'd say. Well, Craig obviously gave her a good answer, and he started by looking at the chart of world history. Now, I had a Japanese guy call me yesterday with my grandson had been witnessing to him, and that was his question. If you say there's a God of love, how could he be a God of love if he judged the children in Noah's day? The innocent children. What would you say? Well, Craig took this young lady to that chart, and you know, there's a chart of world history that says a good God made a good world, and he made it in just 6 days. Not millions of years ago. And then in chapter 3, it's all about where evil and sin came from. You know, most people don't like that chapter because it says if you want to know where evil and sin came from, go look in a mirror. We did it, not God. That's where we got to with this Japanese student yesterday. And after 20 or 30 minutes, he said, oh, wow, if I've got another question, can I call? He's not a Christian. Pray for him that he might get saved like this lady. Okay? We had a professional scientist drop into the museum, and he was a paleogeologist, right? In other words, he deals with old rocks, old fossils like me, or older than me, really. And he said after going through our museum in Tasmania, it may just have been providence that led me here this morning. Now, these are the guys we need people to come to Christ. In fact, much of our work in the universities has come about because a missionary in South America got in touch with a geologist who I worked with in the USA, and the missionary said, "Help! I've got a PhD geologist here, and I'm trying to witness to him about Christ." And he says, "No, that's all fake, that's all nonsense." Now, we took one of our videos, the first video we ever done, The World of Living Fossils, and we sent it to him. And the missionary said, "Wow, what a difference. This guy's now a Christian." And he went back to Oxford, and at Oxford he talked to the other students, and I ended up speaking to the geology department in Oxford. Now, what an open door that God provides through one person coming to know Christ because they've discovered they've been lied to by the world's view of evidence. So have many Christians been lied to, and it ruins their witnessing. So pray for us as we set up discovery centres, particularly in Australia. We have one in Tasmania, we have one at Archerfield. Some of you know we have an open door museum, open area museum up at Gympie as well. Now, in our one here at Archerfield, we have lots of evidence on display. By the way, can you see the Asian sort of background stories? We have dinosaurs on display. The dinosaur's the one on the left, by the way. So pray for Des as we sort of occupy his building upstairs and bring people into it and show them the evidence. We actually had one Muslim come in one day who'd been being witnessed to by a Christian, and they said they've got all sorts of questions about history. Well, we took them upstairs and we showed them that graph, or downstairs and showed them that graph, and her first comment was, "None of that is in the Quran." That's because the Quran is not a real book of history. The Bible claims to be true. The Bible claims to be the truth in the beginning. The Bible challenges you to believe it's true from verse 1 to the last chapter of the book of Revelation. And it's based on this is evidence. Jesus took the disciples and here's what they did. Paul explained things and said, here's what happened. Okay, now in the last couple of weeks, I've been organising for, I'll show you, getting some new things for our museum. Now, I guess you mightn't know what that is, but that's the world's oldest boomerang, according to the secular authorities. And this was found in Poland. Now, they wouldn't give me the original, so this is a copy, right? But we won't complain about that. The boomerang was made of ivory from a mammoth tusk. Now, you know, when I went to school, they told me Aborigines invented boomerangs. Australia was the place where boomerangs are. Sorry, that turns out to be a lie. In fact, we have in our possession now the world's rarest boomerang. Now, I know you don't think it looks like a boomerang, but when I talked to an expert and I said, I've got a Sudanese boomerang for our museum. What? How did you get a Sudanese boomerang? I said, well, the guy turned up and gave it to me. You know, it's amazing what happens when the Lord's in charge. His grandpa had actually been a missionary in Sudan, all before there were rules about bringing wood into Australia or anything. And we've ended up with a rare Sudanese boomerang. And the expert said, I've been trying to get one of those for ages. And I said, well, why are they so rare? He said, there's hardly any trees in Sudan. Never thought of that. No trees, no boomerangs. I guess you might know that most of the boomerangs are made from tree roots. You dig up the root, it's got to have the right shape, and you go from there. And, well, that's one of the world's rarest. We're one of the few museums that I've come across that actually has a Sudanese boomerang. Okay, I've got the word Egyptian there. Now, I was in the British Museum one year doing some filming. It's amazing the opportunities the Lord gives. We were doing the series, some of you might know it, The Origin of the Races, and we needed to end up in the British Museum because they had this picture in their archives. No, it's an original Egyptian picture, and you see it's got a brownish skin-coloured man with a stick, and he's chasing birds. Well, I got this from the Walpurgis Aborigines west of Ayers Rock. You see, the Egyptians and the Aborigines used the same shaped sticks for exactly the same shaped purposes. By the way, we didn't get the filming done in the Natural History Museum for free. We were paying £2,000 per hour. to get access to the originals of Tutankhamun and the others. Yes, you heard me right. Tutankhamun had boomerangs in his coffin. The Egyptians were very well familiar with boomerangs. In fact, the first time I became aware of this was in Arizona. There's an old picture from the 1800s of a native Hopi Aboriginal holding a rabbit in one hand. And what's that stick beside his hand there? Well, if you call it a boomerang, you're right. That's exactly what it is. Aboriginal USA Hopi natives used boomerangs to catch rabbits until the cowboys gave them 6 guns. Much easier to use a 6th gun to hunt rabbits with. But they used boomerangs. In fact, to go one step further, I've got Indian there. Now, I didn't bother bringing all my boomerangs today. We would have the best collection of boomerangs in Australia going into our local Creation Discovery Centre, because the issue of the gospel to Aborigines and to non-Aborigines is all connected to what they've been taught at school. Millions of years ago, apes turned into people. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, somebody came to Australia. They are given a totally fake view of history. Where you think you came from governs who you think you are, which governs where you think you're going to. And the gospel is all about where you are going to. Okay, Indian. I mean, you can go to the web and download all these sort of pictures, usually pretty much free of charge. The Indian goddess of death is Kali. Now, I'll show you some of the Aboriginal boomerangs I've got. You see the one with the big arrow? It's got NT on the arrow. Now, that means Northern Territory. I'm truly grateful that one of our teachers who we helped many, many years ago, he's working for a little school just west of Toowoomba, we went and we spoke about the evidence of Aborigines coming to Australia, and he was amazed. He's now become a world expert in one of the Aboriginal languages, and he and the people he's worked with have provided us with wonderful, genuine Aboriginal implements from all over the place. Okay, do you know what the name of that boomerang is in the Northern Territory? Kali. And that sort of boomerang with the big stick is used for killing things. Isn't that interesting? Do you realise the evidence the Aborigines didn't start in Australia is found in the middle of India, where you find dingoes and you find boomerangs? And if you look carefully, don't be surprised if you look at our DVDs and you see one Indian public servant who'd moved to Australia, and he said, "Oh yes, our Aborigine look like Indians." They do, because that's where they came from. You see, they were in India before they came here. Where were they before they were in India? Well, you see, the Bible's got a real history of where everybody was. In fact, it starts in a garden, doesn't it? Doesn't it start with a man and a woman? And doesn't it start in a world that's very good? And then in chapter 3, the man and the woman sin, rebel against God. And if you need to know why children fight each other in the womb, yes, they do, by the way. You can see them on x-ray sometimes. And if you need to know why children pull each other's hair and why children... Well, you know the favourite word that children have, don't you? No! I mean, the attitude that comes out, something's wrong inside. Okay, a couple of things. A few points we can make to start up with. You see, you want to deal with Aboriginal issues, please don't take the government route of offering them more money. Lack of money is not their problem. I've worked with Aborigines since my uncle had a cane farm way up north, and the Aborigines used to live on the bottom of the cane farm in their humpies. I went to school with Aborigines from the islands, okay? You got to know them pretty well, but they didn't start off in Australia. In fact, they started off in India before they came here. And they did not invent boomerangs, they're simply the last people using them. So when you see things like this,